Buttons. They are so commonplace in our daily lives that we hardly give them a second thought. But these small objects have a surprisingly rich and fascinating history that spans thousands of years. The story of buttons is not just about fashion. It's about human ingenuity, social status, and even technology. The earliest known buttons date back over 5,000 years to the Indus Valley Civilization, which existed around 2800 to 2600 BCE in what is now Pakistan and northwest India. These early buttons were not used as fasteners as we know them today, but rather as ornaments. They were made from seashells and often carved into intricate shapes. Archaeologists have found buttons shaped like animals and flowers, suggesting that even then, buttons had an aesthetic purpose and were a symbol of status. It wasn't until much later that buttons became functional rather than purely decorative. Around the 13th century in Germany, people began using buttons with buttonholes to fasten clothing. This innovation transformed clothing design. Garments could now be tailored more closely to the body, allowing for new styles and more fitted silhouettes. Before buttons, people relied on pins, ties, or brooches, which were less practical and less secure. Buttons gave people a new level of convenience and control over how their clothing fit. During the Renaissance, buttons became even more prominent as symbols of wealth and social status. In Europe, elaborate buttons made from precious metals, gemstones, and even ivory were popular among the nobility and the wealthy. The placement and number of buttons on a garment could indicate a person's social rank or position at court. Some buttons were so intricately designed that they were considered works of art. Collectors today prize antique buttons from this era for their craftsmanship and historical significance. By the 17th and 18th centuries, buttons had become more widespread among the general population. Advances in manufacturing allowed buttons to be produced more cheaply and in larger quantities. Materials like wood, bone, and metal were commonly used. This democratization of buttons meant that even ordinary people could enjoy clothing with fasteners that were both functional and decorative. During this period, buttons also began to be used in uniforms, helping to distinguish different military and civil ranks. The military in particular played a significant role in the evolution of buttons, as armies standardized uniforms and button designs to create a sense of order and authority. In the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution brought another major change to the world of buttons. Factories could mass-produce buttons in enormous quantities, using materials like glass, porcelain, and plastics such as early forms of bakelite. Buttons were no longer just an ornament or a marker of status, they became a commodity that could be affordable for everyone. Innovations in design and production also meant that buttons could serve functional purposes beyond clothing. Buttons were used in upholstery, accessories, and even mechanical devices. In modern times, buttons continue to evolve. While we still use traditional buttons on shirts, coats, and pants, technology has introduced entirely new kinds of buttons. Electronic buttons control machines, computers, and household appliances. From the simple on-off switch to the touch-sensitive button on a smartphone, the concept of pressing a small object to create change remains remarkably consistent with the origins of the button. Despite their technological evolution, traditional clothing buttons retain a charm and historical significance. Designers today often look back at antique buttons for inspiration, using them in couture and fashion collections to evoke a sense of nostalgia, craftsmanship, and elegance. Collectors study buttons as miniature artifacts, tracing changes in material, design, and function over centuries. Buttons also reflect cultural identity. In different regions of the world, buttons have been made from local materials like horn, shell, wood, or metal. They have been decorated with symbols, patterns, or religious motifs that tell a story about the people who wore them. In this sense, buttons are not just functional. They are small pieces of cultural history that connect us to the past. So next time you fasten a button on your shirt or coat, take a moment to appreciate its history. From the shells of the Indus Valley to the luxury buttons of European nobility, from mass-produced buttons of the Industrial Revolution to the electronic buttons of the digital age, buttons have journeyed alongside humanity, shaping the way we dress, express ourselves, and interact with the world. A small object, but with a story that spans millennia. Buttons are a testament to human creativity, practicality, and style.